Thanks for inviting me. It's a good opportunity for me to come and meet everybody because I'm new in post. So I've been at Trafford Council for 4 weeks now. I'm the new strategic manager for crime and antisocial behaviour, and I manage a small team of community safety officers who are predominantly based in Trafford police station, but also work out in the communities and in the police stations there. What I wanted to do was, I don't know whether you'll be circulating the slides afterwards to people who've registered.
Yeah, we'll put it up on the website.
Right, so. Okay. I just wanted to put some contact details on there as well, so that if you need to get hold of the team, or specifically the officer who covers this area is Verity, then you can always kind of make contact through the generic email address there, so somebody will always do that if that's always being monitored. I've also put my contact details down at the bottom, so if you need anything from me, you can get hold of me there. One of the things that we've been doing sort of recently, having been contacted by John around some of the issues in Hale, is looking at the CCTV. So you may be aware that the CCTV system that exists in Trafford at the minute is a kind of hardwired CCTV system. Ultimately, that will be getting upgraded to a wireless system. That will make it in the future easier to move, so when we've got hotspots we can kind of put resources in. As it is, what we've done is looked at all our cameras and we've made an agreement that we're going to move some of them into Hale, so that's getting done imminently. We had a survey done on Thursday just to look at the practicalities around that. That connects through to a control room, and we have 7 staff in there. We share it with Trafford Council. I went to have a look at that recently, and actually some of the staff who work in that control room also volunteer with the police as special officers. So they're very well trained and they've got a real eye for things, and very, very good. And they can kind of move these cameras around, so they're kind of the pan, tilt and zoom things. When they see things going on, they pass that through to the police, and we've had some really good successes. So I think that will hopefully make a difference and also increase those feelings of reassurance as well. Just the other one thing I kind of wanted to say was, I think what you're doing here is absolutely great. I think building that kind of community resilience and that connections between each other is probably a real strength in terms of combating crime. I know sometimes when people kind of see things, you don't always feel comfortable ringing the police because you appreciate how busy they are. I'm also a massive fan of Crime Stoppers, and I think, as the eyes and ears of our community, if we pass information through, if we see something, and Raheel had asked me just to kind of relay a story from a few years ago about how sometimes it's a missing piece of a jigsaw. So my mum's got a couple of dogs, and one of the dogs had an operation, and as you know, when they have those like bucket things on their head. So she was walking the dog early one morning. It was about 8 o'clock, and there's a nature park near to where we live. And as she was walking, there was a kind of copse of trees. A man appeared quite suddenly out of these trees and caused some alarm. And she walked past, and as she did so, and he passed her, she looked back at him, and he stopped and was just looking at her in a manner that made her feel uncomfortable and unsafe, and she felt that he was weighing her up in some way, and how much of a risk the dog was with the bucket on its head. So she came by, she was a bit shaken up by it, and I said, pass it through to the police, and she said, well, he didn't do anything. And I said, well, it's unusual, even in the way that she said he was dressed. Normally morning walkers have got Berghaus coats on and the shoes, and he wasn't dressed like that at all. So I said, you never know, it might just be the missing piece of the jigsaw. So she had my mum's also a justice of the peace, and an eye for detail, so she logged everything down and contacted the police through their website. They rang her back quite quickly and sent somebody out and asked her lots and lots of questions about this individual. She later saw the same individual nearby coming out of a house, so she passed that through to the police. She then read a short time later that he'd been convicted of a string of sexual offences. So it was, and sometimes it is just that missing piece. One of the other things that you pointed out before is sometimes crime that happens in an area can be down to 1 or 2 people, and I think the arrests and charges you've made is really significant. I've been working in Merseyside recently. They arrested one person in crime in this little area, went down by about 80% of burglaries, and they have a history of it. And another one, I used to be a housing officer, and the police used to come in and out, and they were saying a burglar had come out of prison, burglaries had gone up, they didn't have any evidence that it was him. I'd gone to his property, none of this stuff was there, gone in his garage, none of the stuff, and one of the housing officers said, "Oh, his dad's got a lock-up over there, I've seen him shifting stuff in it." And we went and there was all this stolen stuff and we got a result from it. So eyes and ears, and sometimes it's a piece of the jigsaw as a community standing together to make a difference. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Really, I've been very impressed with what I've heard today, and the sort of the vibrancy in this room to come together as a community. And I just want to say that as a council, we'll give you as much support as we possibly can. My role at the council, I'm the exec member for public safety, essentially community safety, and that involves looking at the police. So I'm your representative that sits at the Greater Manchester Police and Crime Panel and the Greater Manchester Police Steering Group. And our job there is to hold the Mayor and Deputy Mayor to account for how they scrutinise the Chief Constable and the staff of Greater Manchester Police. I think the police have got a really, really tough job at the moment. We've talked about resources, Graham's mentioned it. I'm genuinely pleased that we're now talking about increasing resources. This year, I can tell you, Greater Manchester are recruiting an additional 302 officers, in addition to what they normally have to replace, which is about 500 that normally go through wastage or retirement or whatever. And they've put together a transport unit, a dedicated transport. There's 60 officers, is it, Caroline? Which is focused on Metro, but also all of the transport areas. And that'll be having an effect here in Trafford, because that's additional resource. The uplift for Trafford out of the 302 at the moment, or the first lot, is an uplift of 10 officers, which is a start. But it's, as we've said before, please, ring in if you've got any concerns about suspicious circumstances, you're a victim of crime. You need to know, because that indicates what the demand is. And yeah, the boast is that Trafford is the safest place to live in Greater Manchester. And long may that continue. However, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have the required amount of resources, and that has always been the battle. It was a battle when I was a police officer for 30 years as a detective superintendent. And I served some time in Trafford. It's always been a relatively poor relation, but that is because of the demand factors. So I will say, please, ring in if you have been suspicious circumstances, you've been a victim of crime, your house has been burgled. It's not a waste of time. Please let the police know. And thank you very much for having us here today. I think it's been a very, very useful meeting.